The first question that comes to you is, why did we choose the UK? Year after year, your trade gap has kept on increasing and it's in the negative terrain. You can't sell, you can't export, and you want to have an FTA? And why is it that some of our gold is still kept in the UK? Our country doesn't have the facilities or the ability to keep gold itself. So on the one hand, the government keeps on saying, don't have a colonial culture. On the other hand, we bend and suck up to the colonials constantly. Are you mad? Are you trying to create complications in the legal system? Hi, this is RN Bhaskar from Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. We come to you every week with a policy analysis or a business story and sometimes a conversation. What makes us different is that each time we come with a perspective that many people do not have or do not talk about. And this time too, we come to you with a perspective that very few people have talked about, or maybe they've not comprehended the full ramifications of this issue. It's a policy analysis. But before I go ahead and talk about this policy, let me ask you to do two or three things. First, please click the subscribe button if you have not subscribed already. Second, click the like button. It helps us enormously because the algorithms of YouTube improve significantly. But most of all is my third request. Please tell all your friends, all your associates about us, because we bring to you perspectives that we think are in your interests, in our interests, and in the country's interest as well. That is why we look at policies very seriously. So what is today's policy analysis about? It's about a free trade agreement that India has signed with the UK or with England, the way you choose to call it. Apparently, India has been pursuing the UK for the last 3 years to get this FTA signed. And it was signed, it was announced on the same day that India did the so-called surgical strike against Pakistan. It was described as a historic agreement, a historic event. But when you look at the agreement very carefully, there is not much to be proud about. There are many questions and there are many issues that need further clarification. First, to be fair, as soon as the free trade agreement, as soon as the FTA was announced, the UK put out on its websites a full detail of what UK's finances were like, what the country's position was, what its exports and imports were like. It did this on the 2nd of May in anticipation of the agreement, but it was quite comprehensive. Immediately after that, we went to the Ministry of Commerce, which is spearheading the FTA. And we were both dismayed and disgusted. We were disgusted because when you go to the website of the Commerce Ministry, you are not given any information about India's trade for the last 2 or 3 years. In fact, even not 1 year's figures are given in totality. For any figure from the website, you have to first click on the year, on the month, on the commodity, and you get only that little piece of information. So what is a businessman supposed to do? Pick up one commodity after another, 1 year after another, 1 month after another, and then build up a chart? Why can't the Ministry of Commerce understand business and become business friendly? This is shameful. And then you go a step further. The first question that comes to you is, why did we choose the UK? On the one hand, the government keeps on telling us that the UK is a colonial legacy. Please forget it. On the other hand, for 3 years we were chasing the UK. Look at the figures of the UK and India. The UK is not among the top 5 exporters, importers, trade volumes with India. Look at the numbers, look at the chart. UK comes number 19. We are chasing number 19. I know that the world is going through a turbulence. Market conditions are changing. With Trump's tariffs, everyone has to find out new ways to do business. Then the answer is you look at the big places where export-imports are already taking place and go and try to find business there. Or if you go to countries that have not done any business at all, but which have huge potential, go to Malaysia, go to Indonesia, go to the ASEAN region. Why do we keep running after UK each time? And why is it that some of our gold is still kept in the UK? Our country doesn't have the facilities or the ability to keep gold itself. So on the one hand, the government keeps on saying, don't have a colonial culture. On the other hand, we bend and suck up to the colonials constantly. I found that distasteful. Look at the second thing. The government talks about abandoning the colonial culture, and that was the reason given why they changed the Indian Penal Code to the BNS. Hey, why use the word BNS, which many people don't understand? Everyone in India knows IPC. 2, you have changed sections. 3, you have changed words here and there. Do the legislators understand that by changing the IPC, changing sections, changing words randomly, you have made looking at past cases very difficult, because every case, every IPC has case history behind it, where every word in that clause, in the section is analyzed, and there's a history of how different courts have analyzed that word. We'll have to create new case history, which means, as it is, our courts take a lot of time over cases. Now it's going to take even more time. Are you mad? Are you trying to create complications in the legal system? And then you go back to the UK and say that we want a trade deal with you. Okay, let's forget that for the time being. Look at the trade numbers. Both UK and India have a negative trade balance. Look at India's numbers. Incidentally, we got the numbers from the RBI, not from the ministry. The numbers tell you that India is pathetic in trading. Year after year, your trade gap has kept on increasing and it's in the negative terrain. You can't sell, you can't export, and you want to have an FTA? First, learn to sell. Create conditions where Indian exporters are not troubled too much. And then look at the clauses that India and UK have exchanged. You've allowed for the import of whisky, Scotch whisky. Luckily, someone in the government understood that this was a dangerous clause, because the Indian liquor sector would go up in arms and they would stop giving excise duty to the government of India. Within a week, the government changed whisky to beer. In other words, Scotch whisky will continue attracting the high rates of duty. Then there are auto parts. Then there are shrimps. Shrimps are being produced by Andhra Pradesh, which desperately wants some safety because its exports to UK to the US will get affected. Has there been any thought behind it? And this is my sadness. Commerce Ministry was parked in the UK for months and months. They said that we are trying to create a trade policy. Couldn't you find other countries to have a good trade policy with? And there are two other issues. First, they said this is a trade policy without the BIT. What's the BIT? The Bilateral Investment Treaty, which means I invest in your country and then you protect my investments. How can you have a trade agreement without an investment treaty? The Commerce Ministry thought it could have the trade agreement first and the BIT later. Remember, the BIT was cancelled in 2016 by the Modi government. 34 trade agreements were cancelled. Treaties were cancelled, BIT treaties. Now, They want to bring in a treaty where foreigners who invest in India agree that they will not go in for international arbitration without exhausting all legal avenues in India first. If I am an investor from Germany and want to invest in India, you think I'm going to trust the Indian legal system, which takes years and years? I want international arbitration. And that is why no big country wants to sign any FTA or any BIT with India till that clause is reintroduced. Last point. The UK only knows how to sell goods to India. And many of the goods sometimes many of the goods can be substandard even when backed by government guarantees. Remember how when Margaret Thatcher was there, she sold to India 27 Westland 30 helicopters at a price of about $60 million. India and UK said, wonderful deal. Within 2 years, he found that 2 helicopters crashed. In the investigation, it was shown that there were substandard parts, wrong parts, and finally, all the helicopters had to be sold at just under $1 million. The UK has learned to cheat. It's a nation of shopkeepers. It doesn't know how to invest. It has no money to invest. And India needs investments. So why are we talking about the UK FTA? Something is wrong in the way the government thinks and acts. It says one thing, it does another. It removes chapters in the NCERT textbooks saying that this is we don't have to follow colonial patterns of education. And then you go back to the colonials and want to have an FTA with them. The first good sense appears to have dawned on the government when it cancelled whisky and brought in beer instead. Expect more changes. And if we look at the list of items that are given in the FTA, you'll find that there'll be many more protests, many more changes, and the UK FTA deal will be historic in a different sense of the term. It'll be historic because it's a deal that should not have been a deal. Thank you very much for watching this program. Thank you for being here. And just a reminder, please click the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Click the like button and please tell every friend of yours, every associate of yours about this program, because we touch topics that people seldom look at very closely. You'll find us now every morning at 8:15 a.m. on weekdays, where we come out with daily news, or better still, news behind the news. Do watch it.